or you can have some people show up.
Oh, great. Yeah, with a great attitude, probably. That's going to be fantastic. So you have to, nothing like when you have to be somewhere, get you excited about being there.
Well, I think that that people really wanted to come and see Positrio. I think there's just something really intriguing about Positrio in
I
general.
think it's the name.
And everyone will get to hear the story behind that really soon. Great. Well, you know what they say, you're filling the house, Positrio.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks everybody for being here. We appreciate it.
We are so excited. So I've got high noon on my watch, and I'll go ahead and start, and people will continue to trickle in, and we're excited for everybody's here today, and we're so excited that you are here with us at the FDI kickoff event for 2022. And for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm KK O'Byrne. I'm a member of the FDI committee, and I'm also your host for today. So every month we will be rotating hosts, and next month you'll have a different host, an FDI member, and when they present, Dr. Linnea Rademacher. And I'm really excited about our program today. So we have Matt Daniel, Jordan Tate, and Alex Widener with us, also known as Positrio. These are three of our esteemed doctoral students in organizational leadership, and they are generously sharing their expertise in their talk titled Self-Care Through High Quality Connections at Work. And after their presentation, you will have an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. And I've been so blessed to work with each of them in positive leadership courses and in their dissertation work. And you can read a little bit more about them on this next slide. Thank you, Alex. But I'll share a couple of other things that you may not know about them. So we have Matt Daniel with us today, and he is the Director of Strategic Programs at Dodge Construction Network. And Matt's dissertation research involves examining the negative impact abusive supervision has on sales performance and how psychological safety may play a mitigating role. And here's a fun fact about Matt. While visiting Ecuador 22 years ago, he met a woman who became his wife. So we also have Jordan Tate. He's a project manager at FlowTrack, a software company. Jordan's passion is gratitude, and his dissertation is focused on understanding more about gratitude in the workplace and how receiving it impacts job satisfaction in software developers. And a fun fact about Jordan, he was part of the opening ceremonies of the World Cup in 1994. And the story may have evolved a little bit that he actually touched the World Cup. I can't confirm or deny if that's true, but that's a story for another day. But we also have Alex Widener with us today, and she's an academic advisor at Cleveland University in Kansas City. And so Alex and I are basically neighbors. We're in the same city, and we were so lucky to be able to get together last year for lunch, but then COVID hit and we haven't been able to since, but I can't wait to again soon. And so Alex is also researching gratitude in her dissertation, and she wants to understand how receiving gratitude at work impacts job satisfaction in academic advisors, and if stress has a mediating role in that. And here's a fun fact about Alex. When she was in college, she worked at the Wizard of Oz Museum in Liberal, Kansas, where she would dress up, like Dorothy Gale and give tours. And so thank you all for joining us. And again, Matt and Jordan and Alex, thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. And I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Dr. KK, for that introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. We've broken out our presentation today in 4 parts. First, we'll give you an overview of high-quality connections, starting with a working definition and then outlining some of the benefits and how you can encourage more of these types of connections. Then Alex is going to take us through positive emotions and some of the theory behind that and how high-quality connections can start the process of what's called an upward spiral. And I'm really looking forward to that. Jordan is going to get into positive energy and a really cool tool that you'll be able to use called a network energy map. And then I'm going to round out the presentation to talk about resilience, which is one of the outcomes you can get from high quality connections. We'll learn how we can build a reservoir of resilience that will help withstand adversity and challenging times that can happen to all of us. So let's get right into it. Next slide. There are many different ways to take care of yourself, physically, mentally, and spiritually, but today we're focusing on the role of high quality connections and what the role that they have in the support of self-care. Now, one of the key underlying elements of high quality connections is in the role social support plays, which, as you'll see, is a powerful form of self-care and supports your well-being. In fact, I have a couple of points to illustrate how important high quality connections can be. First of all, did you know that social isolation is the equivalent of smoking a pack of cigarettes a day? People feeling like they're on an island is a common occurrence now with remote work. And so being able to have people that you can have these high quality connections with, even virtually or through text message and phone calls, is a really important way so that you're not feeling isolated. The second tip is that according to Gallup, having a best friend at work is also the best predictor of employee engagement. And so as we go through this presentation, think about your best friend at work and also those other colleagues that you have had high quality connections with. And that's going to help you take some of these lessons and apply them in your own lives. So Jordan, tell us a little bit more about high quality connections.
Thanks, Matt. And thanks everybody again for being here. We really appreciate this opportunity, and we think it's worth it. You know, a lot of positive psychology and positive organizational scholarship terms are deceptively simple and seem kind of obvious, but we really believe that this is a very specific and very real thing based on what we've been reading in the positive leadership track, which has been life-changing for me. So I'm very excited to be here. What constitutes a high quality connection? Basically what we mean by that is, or what the researchers mean by that is, high quality connections are interactions that are life-giving. I want to stress that we're talking about interaction between 2 people at work, okay? And so that's different than a relationship, for example, in its overall sense of being. This has to do with the little moments or longer moments of interaction that you're having with somebody else. And how do you know that it's a high quality connection versus, well, it's just communication, or it's just a connection, or I thought it was of high quality because I got something out of it. It was Christmas, they gave me a present, high quality. Well, so how do we know specifically? Basically, it's an interaction that's life-giving. You walk away and both parties have a sense of clarity or emotional stimulation, and it just kind of energizes you. And we're going to cover all of those. It also kind of builds resilience. So that's kind of how everything comes together and why it's so important to self-care. I can give you a very recent example. Yesterday I was having a conversation with Dr. McMichael on the phone. Many of you know her. This was a high quality connection that was phone based. What made it a high quality connection? Well, I almost want to tell you the results of it first, so that we can see how much high quality connections matter. The results was that, you know, I got a lot done after that phone call and made progress in my dissertation. So how did she do it? Because it was a lot to have to do with Dr. McMichael that created the connection. Well, the topic was supposed to be about selecting committee members for my dissertation. Okay, but that's not how she started the conversation. As a matter of fact, if you were to listen in on the first 5 minutes of that conversation, you'd had no clue that that was the point of the conversation, because she first asked me, "How are you doing?" And she paused and she let me answer that. We ended up talking about my kids. How are your kids? I don't even remember what else, but I was pretty relaxed and ready for the conversation about the committee stuff after that. She also listened, and that's a high quality connection as well, is that I felt like, wow, she's really let me finish explaining all this right now. But how was that good for her? How did it turn out good for her? The high quality connection needs to be both people walk away feeling that this was high quality. Well, I mean, I didn't ask her afterwards if I could even use this story, let alone did she actually feel it was a high quality connection. But I can tell you what she said during the conversation is that I said, "Am I talking too much about this? Because I get pretty excited about this topic." And she said, "No, keep going. I love this." She said, "One of the things I love about my job is how much I get to learn, and I'm learning right now." So all those factors, I call that a high quality connection. I'll give you one more example. And I didn't even plan to give you these examples. So they're probably thinking, great, Jordan's already gone off script. That's kind of what I do. But I'll tell you, I was nervous about this presentation. I'm happy, but nervous about it. And I got a high quality connection experience via group chat on a text message from Alex this morning specifically. What made it a high quality connection? Well, first, let me tell you the results. I was less nervous about this. I felt better, I was clearer, and I was more confident to do this presentation. So what did she do? She texted us a GIF or a GIF, a very silly, it was some actor, I don't remember right now, doing a dance saying, I'm excited. And I was like, you know what? That's funny. And it just helped. So even that is a high quality connection. Really quick, I want to talk to you about the foundations of high quality connection. So as the researchers were putting this stuff together, what were they pulling this from before they started to call this a thing, a high quality connection idea? Number one, this is based on the fact that we are social creatures. Okay, so self-explanatory. Number two, connections with others change us. They change our thoughts, feelings, behaviors. For the good or for the bad, connections change us. And so that's the HQC taking that into account. Number three, workplace success involves social processes. Doesn't matter what the organization is, it's not a bunch of people existing on islands in a vacuum or something like that. So in order for an organization to work and do what it's there for, and in order for a person to function in there, there's probably some different kinds of communication that has to happen. Therefore, we need to pay attention to the high quality connections, right? And fourth, and this is this is very important because as far as how we classify whether something's a high quality connection or not. Fourth, each connection exists on a continuum of quality. That means it's really not black and white. Something's either high quality or it's not. And so one of the things we're hoping is not that we're going to teach you what a high quality connection is, because once we get definition, hopefully you're already thinking about ones that you've experienced. But what we kind of want you to think about in this presentation is that any connection can be better. It can be of higher quality. I'll give you an example. Let's say your colleague does a blog or publishes a paper. And a high quality connection would be giving them a compliment for this. Hey, your paper was awesome, or the blog was awesome. Okay, high quality connection because it was a compliment, and that's going to be a positive experience, going to elicit positive emotions, probably some positive energy, and help build resilience. However, how could it be even of higher quality? Hey, your paper was awesome because of the way that it synthesized an argument for servant leadership. So now I'm explaining, instead of just saying it was awesome, give more detail, even more so. And this is important because it's going to be good for employees and the way that you phrased it. And then an even higher quality of a connection might be in that interaction of giving the compliment might be you ending it with, how can I help? Right? And maybe possibly taking that connection to the next level. So again, why is it so important? I want to go to the next slide and show you some of the benefits. Some of the benefits of high quality connections are listed here. And there's one thing I want to emphasize: improved relationships. That's number one here, because a series of high quality connections leads to a high quality relationship. Okay. And I'm going to repeat that here at the end, but let me just throw out a few other things here. Improved individual and collective performance. Performance, always good, right? Peace, harmony, fun, increased adaptability, creativity. More and more jobs, and the way the world is we need more creativity than we need anything else in a lot of cases. Higher job satisfaction, positive emotional experiences, and overall flourishing. Going back to the relationships, it's so important because it is the relationships at work built from the high quality connections, little by little by little, that give more meaning to our work and keep us excited about going. This is the difference. A person who's experiencing high quality connections is the difference between someone looking forward to work on Monday on a Sunday evening and someone who's dreading it. You know, someone who's saying, where did my weekend go? Oh, you know, and so that's kind of the basic end result of this. Now, we're going to move into a little more detail about what it looks like with Alex. Alex, your turn. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan. So self-care is not just for our personal lives, right? It's also for our work lives. And so you don't have to wait till you get home at the end of the day to do self-care. High quality connections are not just for our personal lives either. We spend the majority of our waking hours at work. So it's very important that we're building connections at work as well. So Jordan gave us some examples of, how to foster high quality connections. For example, active listening was one he said with Dr. McMichael, which is huge. But I want to give us a couple more examples here. And so the first one is make positive statements. This can be positive statements that you're making about yourself. Today I'm going to do awesome, right? I'm going to rock this project, or whatever it is you need to make to yourself, but it's also positive statements that you can make to other people. Give encouragement and authentic compliments, which is exactly what Jordan was just talking about. Whether that's at work, whether that's a faculty-student relationship. I see in the chat, someone has said, giving feedback to students in an online format is a great example. And that's huge because you want your compliments to be authentic, right? You don't want to just tell a student or tell your employee, good job, in passing. Yeah, that feels nice. And maybe they, walk away feeling okay about it, but you want to make it more authentic, more personal. So tell them why it was awesome. Give them specific feedback, which is great. I have a little did you know here as well. So the ideal positive to negative statement ratio is 5 to 1, meaning for every one negative statement you make, you need at least 5 positive statements. So just something to keep in mind. So we're going to take a quick minute, and I would like for everyone to enter something in the chat, ways that you think you could foster high quality connections at work, whether that's with your peers, with your students. So we'll just take a minute to do that really quickly. Intentional communication, ask how people are doing. Specific positive feedback, absolutely. Yes, high quality connections at home are important too. Video feedback is a great way, Dr. Maxwell, thank you. Spending more time listening, absolutely. Reaching out for no reason, I love it. Weekly time to just see how people are doing, checking in on your people. Notice excellence, yes. Google Chat, love it. Knowing names, absolutely. Great examples, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out to do that. So we've mentioned some of these already, but I want to give you some more examples here. And so engaging in respectful communication, right? Sometimes we can't just have positive communication all the time. We have to give constructive feedback. It doesn't mean it has to be disrespectful feedback or even negative, we can give that communication in a respectful way. I like to think that when I have to give feedback to someone, how would I want to receive that feedback? And then try to do the same for the other person. Finding humor. This is huge for me. Humor is one of my top 5 character strengths. And so if I'm feeling down or am really struggling with something, work is really stressful, I try to find humor in situations, whether that is seeking out someone in my life that I have a connection with that is funny and makes me laugh. Maybe I'm that for somebody else as well. So making someone laugh helps me. And then sometimes things are just so heavy and stressful, you just have to make light of certain situations and find humor in those situations. Active listening, which we've talked about, showing compassion, not only to other people, but to yourself. Give yourself some grace sometimes. Being empathetic, being honest about our emotions, and that includes our negative emotions, right? We can't do self-care effectively unless we deal with those negative emotions. So we need to make sure we're doing that. Model gratitude in your life for your followers, for your peers. And then eventually you're going to start building trust. And Jordan mentioned when you have high quality connection after high quality connection continuously, you start to build a positive relationship with people. And trust is going to be really important there. So I want to just give my perspective of Positrio, kind of talk about how we became Positrio. And so our story began just about 2 years ago in January of 2020. A very small cohort of students decided to take on the positive leadership track. It was new at ACU. This was the first positive leadership class being offered. None of us really understood what it meant or what positive leadership was or how it was going to impact us. But after attending Dr. KK and Dr. Rasmussen's workshop, we were all very excited. So we started Lead 736, and through those 8 weeks, we began building connections with one another. We quickly started learning about positive relationships, communication, energy, and then emotions. Fast forward a few terms, Matt, Jordan, and I met again in another positive leadership class. And as we met again in the second class, our connection just started building and building. And it started feeling like we were sort of destined to do this doctoral journey together. And so from that, Positrio was born. And I named it Positrio because I name everything. And I think it's more fun than saying Alex, Matt, and Jordan every single time. It just gave us a little humor, right? And so because of this connection, we started experiencing a bunch of positive emotions and witnessing that our connection was creating a positive impact, not only in our school lives, but it was also starting to create a positive impact in our personal lives. So I really want to talk about positive emotions, and those are important, but I think it's important that we also address negative emotions first. We all know what negative emotions are. We've all experienced them. I think we all understand what negative emotions are better than what we understand positive emotions are. And so negative emotions like fear narrow your thought action repertoire. Like that is your response options. It constricts it. And so when you have these negative emotions like fear, your response options are often like fight, flight, or freeze. Okay, that leaves us with 3 options to choose from. And although this can save us in the short term, long term, it's going to cause us problems. Having long-term negative emotions can cause chronic stress. It can make a person potentially violent. It can cause depression. And what it does is start spinning you in a downward spiral, which could lead to increased depression, anxiety, and ultimately long-term, if that continues, negative emotions could kill you. However, we have an upside, right? We have positive emotions, which are awesome. And according to Fredrickson, positive emotions are indicators of flourishing and optimal well-being. Who doesn't want to flourish in their life and who doesn't want optimal well-being? We all strive for that in our life. And so when your positive emotions are cultivated, they can help you attain psychological growth and, again, enhanced well-being. Some researchers even argue that positive emotions can reduce inflammation, lessen the number of colds a person has, and reduce cardiovascular disease. All great things. Some examples, as you can see in the graphic, include joy, love, interest, inspiration. There's a lot of positive emotions that are not on this graphic, but I think it gives you a great foundation. So overall, unlike negative emotions that constrict our response options, positive emotions broaden them. And this gives us both short-term and long-term benefits, which is going to eventually help us build those personal resources that we need to reserve for future threats, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. So the take-home message really here is that they're worth cultivating, because it's not just an end state. I'm not just joyful and then I'm joyful and it's over, right? It means that I have these long-term benefits I'm building and achieving psychological growth over time. I want to just pause for a second to share another story. At the end of 736, which was our first positive leadership course, Jordan and Matt did their final discussion together, which you can see them on the left. And when I watched this video, I was smiling so much. I was just filled with joy because I thought, what a great idea. And then I thought, how can I be a part of that? I want to be a part of that connection. They had made this connection in school that I was deeply craving. Sometimes online courses can feel isolating. Even though we do have discussion boards, sometimes those connections aren't strong or they're sort of fleeting. In the next class, you have different peers. And so I wanted this face-to-face connection with them. So when we took our second positive leadership course, we had another group assignment to do. And I basically emailed them and said, hi, my name is Alex. I'm also really cool. Be my friend. Okay, we're doing this together. And so as you can see on the right, they were like, okay, great, Alex. And so we did it together. It was awesome. And look at us now. We're presenting together. Okay, so I want to dive in just a little bit to broaden and build theory, because I think it's an important way of understanding how positive emotions help us. So Fredrickson says that the broaden and build theory is the idea that positive emotions such as joy, interest, gratitude, love, broaden your positive thought action repertoire, again, your response options. And that helps build social, emotional, and psychological reserves for your future. So a couple of examples that Fredrickson gives us is joy. Joy broadens by creating the urge to play, by being creative. And so if you think about yourself as a child or your children or your grandchildren and how much joy they have when they're little, right? They're just so full of joy. And that often spawns into these playful moments and this creativity. Some of us had imaginary friends, or they like to paint and color and all the things. And then that creates more joy, right? And so I think it's important as an adult that we replicate that and we try to spend our time having playful moments and being creative to help create joy. Interest is another example that Fredrickson gives. And she says that helps broaden by creating this urge to explore, take in new information, experiences. And for Positrio, we really began a deeper interest in our topics that we were learning in positive leadership together. We started having a deeper interest in one another's personal lives. And then, as Dr. KK mentioned, Jordan and I are even writing our dissertations about the same topic because of our deeper interest in conversations throughout our connection, which is awesome. Okay, so if we look at the graphic, it starts with positive emotions at the bottom, you see, and it broadens into these thoughts, activities, relationships, and that begins to build your personal resources. Some of these resources include social support, right? So high quality connections, resilience, which Matt is going to talk about later, and your knowledge even. And then that's going to lead us to enhanced health, right? We all want enhanced health in life. I think if you say you don't want enhanced health in life, I don't think you're being truthful. We all want to achieve that goal. And so high quality connections create not only positive emotions, but also positive energy, which is what Jordan's going to talk about next. And so at Positrio, we made a social connection. This connection led us to joy, which led us to creativity, which led us to interest in this cycle we call the upward spiral. Okay, I mentioned the downward spiral, which we can all imagine. And now we have an upward spiral, and the upward spiral continues generating more positive emotions and energy in a cycle that boosts personal and social functioning, right? So you have joy, and then you have creativity, which creates more joy, which creates more creativity, and you just keep upcycling. The hope is that once you're in an upward cycle, that you have a ripple effect on those around you. So those around you are also experiencing an upward cycle. Ultimately, you have a higher functioning self. You hope that those around you have a higher functioning self. And leaders, this is important because this is going to help you create a positive climate in your organization. And Cameron argues that positive climates can create higher levels of well-being, higher levels of productivity, job satisfaction, and ultimately that's going to produce a better bottom line. All right, I'm going to pass it off to Jordan.
Thanks, Alex. You did a great job. Once again, thank you if you came in late. Thanks for being here. Matt, Alex, Dr. KK, I don't know if you noticed, but my Zoom says we got 46 participants in here, and that's very exciting. If we give one person one idea, or if you, someone else in the audience or in the chat gives one person one idea, I mean, how many people is that going to positively impact everybody that they interact with? So it's very exciting. So again, it's my turn to tell a little bit about Positrio. And we made this kind of a recurring theme of our presentation because that's why we're here. We figured the best thing we could do is tell our story, which is how we've experienced some of these things that we were actually learning about at the same time, which is kind of inception kind of deal happening there. But we were growing these high quality connections into these high quality relationships, the three of us. And I can tell you from my experience, from my side of it, what I noticed about Alex and Matt, and where I noticed it, was in the discussion posts in our class from week to week. What happened with me was the way they were saying smart things, of course, drew me, but also we started to develop little positive connections. Really, each little time we would interact with each other, something good would come out of it. I would get a better idea. I would feel better. I would experience those positive emotions, and it kept me coming back. And a lot of outcomes started to happen from that. So this is why we're here, really. And I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to share with you right now, but I'll go ahead and move on and talk about positive energy. That's my next section, and I'll try to be brief as I can. I've noticed our time right now. So, Alex and Matt gave me a lot of positive energy, but what is that? Again, let's talk specifically about the terms that we've been reading about in the research. One of the guys that's really big into this whole idea is Dr. Ken Cameron, and he's kind of a big name in this whole field. But he explains it this way. There's basically two kinds of energy. One you're probably the most familiar with. That's not the one we're going to be talking about. The one you're most familiar about is basically energy. It refers to the human capacity for action toward a goal, or the resource of potential. There are two kinds. There's activation potential energy. This depletes. This is our energy, either physical or even emotional, that it's built up and then it depletes. And so we're talking about relational energy, which is different. Relational energy is energetic stimulation energy, and that is self-enhancing. It leads to more and more of energy. So an example would be, even if you go to a football game and your team wins, you've had a great time and it's a wonderful experience. Those emotions and that physical energy has led you to need to go home and go to sleep. However, if you get home and your kid's still awake and you are going to tell your kid a bedtime story, you might have noticed, if you've ever been in that situation, that you have more energy all of a sudden to tell that bedtime story. It just feels different there for a moment. And that's because you're involved in a relational energy exchange. So again, it's the self-enhancing energetic stimulation. I'll give you just a fun fact about what relational energy does for us. People, and it's there in the gray, people who do not experience consistent relational energy are 4 times more likely to die at a young age. Positive relational energy is a better predictor of health than factors like obesity and excessive drinking. By the way, I got that out of Kim Cameron's book that he came out with in 2021. So that's very recent data that we're talking about. Now, why is this important in the workplace? Well, it leads to network energy. And that's the next slide I want to talk to you about. This is a tool that we're kind of hoping that you go home with, you walk away with, and you try a little more of your own. And this is going to be the next thing we ask you to do in the chat as well, to kind of give us some of your experiences, which, by the way, if you have not gone back and read some of these, here are some excellent points in the chat here that I was reading. It's incredible stuff. So network energy derives from the energy levels that combine on an organizational wide scale. A positive energizer is a powerful influencer. Okay, so who are the positive energizers in your world, and are you one for other people? Well, how do you know? Well, if you walk away from that interaction and it was a high quality connection, then you're going to feel more energized. You're going to walk feeling better than you did. You're going to find yourself drawn to look for these people and avoid the people that are not positively energizing, because there's going to be a level of energy in any interaction. That's a given. It's just, do we want to make it a positive one? This is a network energy map that you're looking at right here. This is actually Matt's, because he did a great job of putting this together. It makes a lot of sense. What you'll do is, you see Matthew is in the purple, and you draw lines to people and you decide, well, is it a mostly positive interactions that I have with this person? Is it mostly negative interactions, or is it neutral? Again, this is a way to be a major influencer for the good or for the bad. Leadership roles are influential roles, but if they're negative energizers, they will not have as much influence as positive energizers will. Another reason this is so important is because there are also information networks. You could do an information mapping. In fact, in Cameron's book I was telling you about is one place you could look at that, where he's actually gone out and done these studies. And people who have a lot of information, but no one wants to talk to them because they're so draining, the information doesn't get shared. And so it really hurts everybody. There's a point I want to make here about what it is to be a positive energizer. It's not about just sharing positive feelings, and it's not about just being energetic. As a matter of fact, in my own life, I had a previous supervisor who was extremely peppy, very, very peppy and positive, and it drained me. It was energy depleting for me because I felt like I had to kind of get up there on that level with her every time I was around, or I was going to feel weird. Like, hey, Jordan, how are you today? And I kind of want to be like, I'm great. And then I'm like, I got to go, I'm exhausted. So it doesn't have to come from an extroverted person or someone who's pretending to have a lot of energy. I want you to think about, and put in the chat right now, think of someone who, when you walk away from them, you feel a little bit more alive. And we don't need to know their name, but put what is it that they do that makes you feel just better when you walk away. And I'll read a couple in the chat as they come. Oh, definition of relational energy. Yeah. They listen. This is a great example, right? Because they're not doing anything. They're just listening. So the energy is that relational energy. Things about me. Thank you for saying they remind me of things, or they talk about, they remember things about me. Thank you so much for saying that. One of the elements of high quality connections is a sense of being known. That's very important. That is very energizing. Thank you so much for saying that. We're hoping that you walk away. I'm gonna conclude this little positive energy piece with this. We're hoping that you walk away trying to map out pick 1 or 2 people and map them out like this. Are they mostly negative, mostly positive? The whole idea is to spend more time with people who are energizing you and less time with ones who aren't. Change the method that you're communicating with those people, maybe something like that. And I lied. I just have to tell you one more thing. You know what? No, I'm not. I'm gonna make myself stop. So let me pass it on to Matt, and he's going to talk about how resilience factors into this.
Thank you, Jordan. One of the great things that came out of meeting Alex and Jordan and having so many high quality connections with them was that ultimately it led to becoming friends throughout this process. And one of the things that it gave us was resilience. Each of us had our own personal challenges throughout the 2 years since we've met. We've had challenges at home, on our professional lives, and in the course itself, in the classwork. There were times where it was hard to be motivated to get through certain assignments or certain topics. One thing I was thinking about was when Alex was going through a difficult time in her professional work life. She was in a really toxic environment, and there were times during our positive leadership track and different leadership discussions that there were appropriate times where she could discuss this toxic workplace and so forth. But it was really something that started to impact her personally and with her family and at school, because it was just so pervasive. And one of the nice things that came out of this was that Alex could share some of those things with Jordan and I, or ask for our help or advice, or just to listen. And we would be interacting in this way initially on the discussion post, but then it carried over into phone texts and messages and emails, and it was something that helped her while she was starting to feel burned out at the moment to get through that. Fortunately, she's in a much better situation now. She's found a new work environment and is much happier. We were able to show her some empathy and give her some encouragement, and we're happy that she's in a better spot now. But all of us helped each other in one way or another in that type of a way. Next slide. So what is resilience? Well, according to the American Psychological Association, resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as family and relationship problems, serious health problems, or workplace and financial stressors. I like to think about resilience as a bank account. You need to have regular deposits if you expect to have any when you need it. When you've got a positive resilience balance, you can withstand those different shocks that are happening to you. But when you're overdrawn, when you have a negative balance, you're already feeling emotionally exhausted. You've already got a certain level of burnout and maybe depression. There's really nowhere to go. You got to find somewhere to lift yourself back up again. So it's really important, since resilience is something that can be depleted, it's really important to constantly refill, and having high quality connections is one way to keep that tank full all the time. Next slide. So what I wanted to show you here is on the left-hand side, is just to acknowledge that while today we're talking about high quality connections as one way to add to resilience, there are many other ways to do it, and the left slide illustrates that. Before I dive into that too deep, though, I wanted to emphasize something that was mentioned briefly earlier, a myth about resilience, which is, we often view resilience as a trait that's related to one's own personal perseverance and grit and the proverbial picking yourself up by your bootstraps. However, research shows that resilience is not purely an individual characteristic, but it's heavily influenced by the quality of our social interactions. I'd like to take a moment here and actually read to you an example of something that I came across last night, a text message that I came across. This is between 3 ACU online EDD students. These people have never met in person. They've only seen each other's faces on a handful of synchronous meetings, and the rest has been through the coursework, phone, text, and email. And I'm going to use the fake names just to protect the innocent here. So this is between Mary, John, and Amy. So Mary said in the text message, "I told Dr. M that we started this program together and how great you two have been. She was happy to hear we have a network, especially during this part of the process in our dissertations." John said, Definitely, we need to keep each other focused and moving through the process. Mary came back and said, I told Dr. M that you all were there for me when my mom died and kept me going. And she started crying. John said, that's sweet. Now I'm crying. Mary said she started crying about talking about their children. And then when I talked about my mom, it was a lot going on. We were both going through it with her older children. She cried about my mom, and her mom just died a year ago. It was a lot going on. And the other person said, oh, I'm sorry. And then Amy said, oh, I love you. I love you both. And Mary said, thank you both for your friendship. So this was an exchange between 3 students. One of them that had relied on her high quality connection classmates that she'd never met in person, even to get through maintaining her focus on the classwork in light of the death of her mother, which was really tough for her. So that's how important and impactful these kind of relationships can be. This concept was also well illustrated during Alex's discussion, where she spoke about ways to foster high quality connections that spur positive emotions and begin that upward spiral based on the broaden and build theory. So on this slide, the left is, again, just to acknowledge that there's things that you can do physically, like exercise and sleep, that build resilience. You can do mindfulness meditation. In this new year, it's great to maybe have a resolution to put some type of a self-care resilience plan of something that you like to do to help you with resilience. But you'll also see one of the big circles, the red one on the left, is social connections, which is directly related to the high quality connections. And so when you kind of zoom that out, you'd see the graphic here on the right, which is all of the ways that relational resources can help you build resilience. I think one of the really cool things about this is it's not a one size fit all. You can get resilience from all kinds of different personalities. So when you're thinking about your network energy map, or you're thinking about the people in your social network, you know, you might have people that are particularly empathetic, that can help you, help empathize with you when you need to talk through something that's challenging. You might have someone like Alex who's full of humor, and so they might be the ones to help you break that stress with a comedic gif or funny joke or something like that to give you the relief that you need. Or someone that helps you look at things from a different perspective and find the silver lining, or look at things from one way or another. And so when you're thinking about those people that feel good, the next layer could be, well, why do they make me feel good? Maybe make a mental note of that, so you're more intentional about reaching out to your network depending on what your personal needs are at the time. And also think about it from what you give to people. I'm not the funny one in the Positrio, but I feel like I help with the perspective side. So I definitely, typically what comes out of my mouth when I'm hearing something and I feel like there's a request for advice or guidance, for me, what occurs most of the time is, well, think of the positive side, or think of it from this perspective, or have you gone about it, maybe tried these 2 different ways? That's just how my mind works. And so that's how I try to contribute to the resilience of others. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here we are. Let's just wrap up really quick on what we just covered. This is a recap here of what we told you we were going to cover at the beginning of the presentation. So having these types of connections, there's so many benefits for individuals and the organizations, as you've seen today. And by thinking about all your interactions at work as having potential for high quality connections, your students, your coworkers, your supervisors, you can not only help yourself, but others as well. Think about how you can create that upward spiral of positive emotions, how you can become a positive energizer for others, and how you can surround yourself with other energizers and be a force that provides resilience. And you know where to go when you need resilience in these challenging times. The network energy map, again, I encourage you all to even start simple with just a circle for yourself, and put a circle to the next person you have an interaction with, and just put a plus or a minus next to it. And then you can add to that over time, just to get an idea of who you're surrounding yourself with. And if you need to minimize the negative energizers and maximize the people that are positive energizers. Get a sense of the frequency of positive and negative energizing people that you're around. And, with high quality connections, remember that resilience is that outcome of having high quality connections, and that you need to continue to make regular deposits and resilience through self-care in order to really have it and prevent that emotional exhaustion and burnout, and COVID fatigue and all the things that we're facing in today's challenging times. So thank you again for listening to this. I'd like to go ahead to go to the next slide. And before we start asking or answering any additional questions, I wanted to give you this final quote to end the presentation today. We need to take care of others. Self-care alone won't fulfill people's needs as we rebound from the pandemic. After many months in relative isolation, we must reclaim connection and meaning. That comes not just from caring for ourselves, but also from caring for one another. So thank you again for the opportunity to present. We'd be happy to answer any questions through the chat that you might have.
Thank you so much, everybody.
You all were so wonderful. Thank you. I'm energized every time I hear this talk, and just the three of you together, it truly brings me so much joy. And thank you for being so wonderful.
Thank you, Dr. KK, for mentoring and helping us with this awesome opportunity.
Hey, you're the reason I love my job and why I love teaching. It's this right here. Okay, so Dr. Counts has a question here. What advice would you give on how to help students connect in online courses?
That's a great question. We did this relatively organically. We were naturally attracted to the discussion posts, and then this kind of spontaneous connection occurred as we started replying to each other's posts, and then we started finding humor and insights and perspective that we had. And then for us, what I'm leading to is actually some advice here. There was a watershed moment that Alex mentioned earlier. We asked for Dr. KK's permission on the last week's assignment of our first course. We asked her permission to do the discussion post as a group video. It was initially supposed to be an individual video. Through interaction with Jordan, we realized we lived relatively close to each other. So we agreed to go to Jordan's house, have some pizza, and record this video. And that's what spurred this. Now, in an online environment, it might not be possible to actually go to somebody's house logistically. But what I do think can help in an online environment is maybe instead of some of just the written discussion posts, that you encourage some group activity, whether it's a group video, a podcast, or something that might be a little non-traditional as a way to spur that collaboration and get some of those relationships going. I mean, that's what worked for us, and it was just kind of a spontaneous thing. But I think that could be replicated and encouraged.
I also think that hosting synchronous meetings is really helpful as well, because you're having that face-to-face time with your class as a whole. And so that is a great way for people to connect face-to-face, even though it's through Zoom, instead of just writing discussions every week.
Well, it's still the only question so far, I think, other than the references. We will get those to you. We have those on the following slides, but we'll have to think of a way to, put the references into a Google Doc and share a link to you for a follow-up email or something. We would love feedback, by the way. But if I could add to answer the question about what else we could do, just to throw out a few ideas. Thank you for that question. We did connect through the discussion posts. I know those are not always students' favorite thing to do, but they can be very powerful. And so there's probably some ways that the curriculum writers could play around with the requirements of the discussion post, but in a way that doesn't seem like we're adding more, but maybe, pick a partner for the next 2 weeks or something like that. I don't know, but the discussion post, I think there's probably tweaks that could be played with to better help people connect. I also really liked and like when professors have offered the opportunity for Zoom meetings. I wish I would have taken advantage of those more. I'm not sure what to do about encouraging people to take more advantage of those, but I just wonder about those too, if there's maybe another way to communicate them or something like that. But I also really love quick emails back and forth from the other students, but I don't always have a reason to email a student in my class until it's like an emergency about something. You know what I mean? Like I really need them. So maybe reasons to email as well. Sharing papers has been fantastic. I love when they've gotten to look at my problem statement and things like that. That was really cool. So just some ideas. Sorry, I hope it helps, but.
And I also have a couple of things to add on to that. As an instructor, I've learned I really need to listen. And when my students are asking, hey, can we do this assignment differently? I mean, that tells me that, wow, okay, these are really smart people who want to engage in a really deep way. They're asking to do this assignment in a way that's more meaningful to them. And it's really led me to think about instruction and instructional design and how we structure things. So I think listening to students is really important. There's also a little element of luck in here too, that if we can harness this in any possible way, you know, they formed a really strong relationship in the first class, or they started to, right? And then they were together in other subsequent courses. And so keeping that cohort together as much as possible, I think, is a really, really cool thing. And I know it's not always possible, but I would say, hey, when it's possible, maybe that's something that we can consider. Anything else? Are there any other questions? Any other comments?
Dr. Bernie, I would like to just say something very quickly. As Dean, I am very, very impressed with the presentation of the students here. You have not only shown what you have learned with your professors, you have also given us new food for thought and new ways of thinking about things. I'm so happy that this is happening, because this just lets everyone know, not just ACU, but everyone. And I wish more people could see this level of scholarship that we have with our students. And I want to thank you all personally for doing this. And Jordan, you did not look nervous at all. I wanted to just thank you, and then thank KK and Heather for their leadership in these classes, and Karen, because she is the program director over this whole program. But thank you so much for everything that you have done. And thank you, Dina and the FDI team, for putting together such a wonderful presentation. I've learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Glenn.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We thought it was a fantastic opportunity. We were really excited and grateful that we had this opportunity. So it was wonderful for us too. Thank you so much.
And thank you again. And everybody, thank you for joining us today and for your positive responses and for your contributions in the chat. And look for an email in the next couple of weeks about next month's offering, where Dr. Linnea Rademacher will talk to us about giving quality feedback in the online environment. All right, everybody, have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.